George August Schweinfurth was a German botanist and ethnologist who spent a number of years in East and Central Africa, doing geographic, botanical, and other scientific investigations in the mid-late 1800s. He saw many things amongst the natives while he was there, including their slavery and cannibal practices. In the following quote, Schweinfurth comments on the diet of a king named Munza. During our residence at the court of Munza, the general rumor was quite current that nearly every day some little child was sacrificed to supply his meal. End quote. For a portion of his time in Africa, Schweinfurth had no choice but to travel with a band of Arab slave raiders, led by a man named Samat. In the following quote, Schweinfurth describes what he witnessed the Bobeka people do to an infant of their own tribe, born to a slave mother, and therefore a slave itself. It was the most horrible thing he had ever seen. The following quote from Schweinfurth is not for the ears of children or the soft. Some days after the raid on the Bobeka, I was witness of a scene that can never be erased from my memory. During one of my rambles, I found myself in one of the native farmsteads. Before the door of the first hut I came to, an old woman was sitting surrounded by a group of boys and girls, all busily employed in cutting up gourds and preparing them for eating. At the door of the opposite hut, a man was sitting composedly playing upon his mandolin. Midway between the two huts, a mat was outspread. Upon this mat, exposed to the full glare of the noonday sun, feebly gasping, lay a newborn infant. I doubt whether it was more than a day old. In answer to my inquiries, I learnt that the child was the offspring of one of the slaves who had been captured in the late raid, and who had now been driven off to a distant quarter, compelled to leave her infant behind, because its nurture would interfere with her properly fulfilling her domestic duties. The ill-fated little creature, doomed to so transient an existence, was destined to form a dainty dish, and the savage group was calmly engaged in their ordinary occupations until the poor little thing should have breathed its last and be ready to be consigned to the seething cauldron. I profess that for a moment I was furious. I felt ready to shoot the old hag, who sat by without displaying a particle of pity or concern. I was prompted to do something rash to give vent to my sensation of abhorrence. But I was swayed by the protestations of the Nubians, ringing in my ears that they were powerless in the matter, and that they had not come to be lawgivers to the Nyamnyam or Bobek. I felt that I was as helpless as they were, and that it would be folly for me to forget how dependent I was upon them. What influence, I was constrained to ask, could my interference have exercised? What could any exhibition of my disgust and indignation avail to check the bias of an entire nation? Missionaries, in their enthusiasm, might find a fruitful field for their labors, but they must be very self-denying and very courageous. End quote.